Smoking tires down to the boat ramp is about as American as fireworks on 4th of July. Now, you don't always expect to see it coming from a full-size truck only carrying a fairly small boat like we see from behind here, but you never know what you're going to see. When the Boneheaded Boaters get out there on the water, you're never going to be surprised. For whatever reason, when people get out around the water, they just wind up doing silly things at random, just like some of the things we're going to witness in this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Now, of course, it's not uncommon to see people stuck at the boat ramp like we just mentioned, but something else you might not expect is to see people stuck out on the water. It happens a lot more frequently than you would think. And the reasons behind it are just as odd. You never quite know what to expect. Sometimes it'll be somebody just stuck out there on the sandbar. Other times, you might find some people stuck on the rocks. One you don't typically expect is to find a rescue crew stuck out on the rocks. Usually, you see them out there trying to rescue people off the rocks. Now, this one's definitely one of those odd situations where we don't know exactly what went wrong. You see the boat come peeling out of the marina, and you can kind of tell they got a funky angle going on as they're coming out, but somehow they must have hit something to get redirected completely back into the rocks. Speaking of being on the rocks, it's one thing to get a small boat off the rocks, completely different world to try and get a big boat off the rocks. Now, at least when it's a small boat, you got a few more options on the assist to get it off. See, here we can see this crew decided they were going to go ahead and beach it up for the day, not realizing that that was probably not a good spot to be. Now, fortunately, they are able to get another vessel to come in and lend a hand, and that vessel happens to have a crane, so maybe it makes life just a little bit easier than trying to get that yacht off the rocks, but neither one of these is really a good situation to be in. Now, being stuck on the water makes sense as a boater. One that you might not think of all that often, though, is being stuck on the road as a boater. Typically, we'll see cars broke down on the side of the road or things going wrong like that, but it's not very common to go ahead and see a boat stuck out there on the road. Or maybe it's more common than we think. Now, sometimes you'll only feel stuck, like you don't understand why you don't have full control of the vessel. If you know why these guys don't have full control, let me know in the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Then, of course, there are those times you think you have full control until all of a sudden you realize you don't. Now, apparently in this situation, the captain was up on the upper deck, either removing or putting on some isinglass around the bridge area that's up top, when all of a sudden, as he was doing so, he wound up accidentally bumping one of the throttles, lurching the yacht forward into the dock. Again, being out of control can be a little wild, but the bigger the boat, the worse it can be. But of course, control comes in many different forms. It's not always big things that you can't control on the boat. Even small things go wrong just when you're trying to get onto a vessel. So you always got to pay attention and try and take control of the things you can control.
If his T-top stays on this boat, I will be so shocked. And his anchor's still in the water. No way, it's gonna work.
Most boats actually will have some kind of rating of what you can actually tow from that T-top, but it's definitely not another boat. And this is another one of those reasons why you get tow insurance, because of things like this. Of course, getting stuck out on the water doesn't always actually mean you're stuck. Sometimes you get stuck out on the water because of other factors, such as going out and all of a sudden bad weather rolling in on you, making you stuck where you can't really get out and get moved. Sometimes you'll try and move, but of course, in boating, it's not always the best idea. If you're safe somewhere, stay safe. Other times, if the weather's going to be there a while, well, you just got to pick up and try and roll with it. Now, of course, weather is one of the most avoidable mistakes that you can make when you're trying to go out there on the boat and make sure you don't get stuck. If the weather's calling for bad weather, you might as well stay in. I mean, there's plenty of other things you can get stuck on out there without having to worry about the weather as well. Now, this is another stuck moment that you might not think of as well, but that's getting stuck trying to get the boat back into the slip. There are many times, especially if you're a newer boater or it's one of the first times you're docking a vessel, you may find yourself in this spot. And when I say stuck, it's stuck because you've got to put it back there. and the wind and weather and tides and current don't want to cooperate and make the task significantly harder than it should be. One thing I always tell people in this situation, always stop, take a breath, try and assess the situation before you get there. Far too often, people get discouraged really quickly and start gunning the throttle when they find themselves in a spot, and that's not always the correct answer. As you see here, this crew found themselves in a hard pinch, but instead of gunning the throttle, they decided to use the forces they actually could control, which were the people around them and the vessels around them, to go ahead and get the push off and get her back into the slip. And speaking of factors you can control, another factor you can control is when you go out on the boat is wearing that safety kill switch lanyard. Far too often we see this situation as well, where you get stuck, well, not on the boat, you wind up stuck in the water because somehow you wind up going overboard. And when that winds up happening, if you're not wearing that safety kill switch lanyard, not only do you put yourself in danger, you put others in danger as well, because typically that boat is running wild. And unfortunately, out there on the water or a lake, most of the time, if a boat's running wild, you won't know. It's just going to look like a vessel that's coming toward you until you get close enough to understand there's nobody on the boat, which can create a dangerous situation where typically somebody's got to get involved and try and stop it, kind of like we see here. Now, of course, one place you actually may expect to see people stuck out on the water is going to be around the old sandbars.
Are we not on top of this? Bro, you want to tell him or you want me to tell him? Can't park there! Can't park there, guys!
Now, of course, one thing that is interesting about being out on the boat is you don't necessarily got to find yourself stuck on the boat. Of course, there's water around you. You may want to get off and jump in. And some of you actually may not want to jump in. Maybe you just want to stay on the boat instead. But if you do wind up staying on, I definitely don't recommend riding like this. Now, being stuck on a boat's not the only way to be stuck on the water. Obviously, there are plenty of people who find ways to get out there, get on the lake or the ocean or any type of body of water in general and find their own ways to become boneheaded boaters, kind of like this crew we see here. Now, of course, being stuck on the water, I already know what many of you are thinking. BG, how bad really can that be? I mean, most people are out there enjoying themselves on the water to have a good time, because even here, this crew seems stuck, but they are all laughing and having the absolute time of their lives. And if I can ever portray one thing, that's one thing I always would portray. It doesn't matter what you do when you get out there on the water, go out, enjoy yourself, and have a great time. The only thing we ever recommend is if you're gonna get out there and have a good time on the water, do so in the safest manner possible. Make it safe for yourselves and the other people around you. That way we can all get out there and enjoy the water without having to worry about boneheads being out there. Thanks for watching, crew. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your local waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Victoria Chuck, Adam Coolidge, and Mike did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.